It's disappointing that, given this government, since coming to office, have given resident doctors a 28.9% pay rise, and that a majority of resident doctors didn't even vote for strike action, that the BMA is now preparing to take that action, which puts at risk so much of the progress we're making on the NHS, where it feels like the NHS is finally moving in the right direction. So I met with the resident doctors today to urge them, even at this late stage, to work with a government that wants to work with them.
Frustrating there. Well, our health correspondent Laura Bundock joins us now for more on this. We heard there, I guess, the pretty kind of punchy remarks from the government, but you've been talking to some of those doctors, right?
Yeah, and you see both sides, really. I mean, the Health Secretary very much at pains to point out that the resident doctors, they're the medics formerly known as junior doctors, have had a lot more money. One of the first things he did since taking office was restart those negotiations and end, the ongoing industrial action last year. He says, look, they've received the highest pay award of the entire public sector. But the BMA, the resident doctors, say it's not enough, basically, because their real terms pay is still 21% where it was in 2008, and they want pay restoration, as they're calling it, basically more money. Now, you remember from the last set of strikes we had, it was really disruptive for patients. 1.5 million appointments, treatments, procedures, operations ended up being cancelled or postponed. So not great for patients. And I put that, just minutes after they'd met the Health Secretary, I put that to the BMA and said to them, how can you justify more strike action with your patients? Here's what they said.
I think we're very cognizant as doctors of the disruption that strikes can cause. We don't take strike action lightly, and we don't want to have to go out on strikes. I can be quite frank to say I am a paediatric trainee, work with children and families. It would be better for the patients if I was actually at work. I don't want to have to take that step. Mr. Streeting, if he wants to invest in the NHS, if he wants to work with doctors, if he wants to retain doctors, all he needs to do is actually offer us a credible offer to keep us on the journey to pay restoration, and then we don't need to have a single strike.
And Laura, it feels to me like, we just marked a year of Keir Starmer's government, and one of the big achievements they talk about is the NHS and reducing waiting times and all that. But I guess if we do enter this period of strike action again, do you think that could jeopardise some of the progress that's been made?
I think it does threaten that. There is some pretty bullish targets out there that, aren't quite on track to be being met. We've had the 10-year plan, this much hyped big announcement for the future of the NHS just a few days ago, and now talk of more strikes. It's a moment of jeopardy, I think. So we're at this strange stalemate, really, where the government's saying there's no more money, but we're happy to talk about working conditions. The BMA now has this mandate where they could go on strike. They say, look, the meeting was reflexive. They said we felt heard, but ultimately it's the actions that really matter. And I think if there isn't enough action for the BMA, then strikes are a possibility, and they could come as soon as the end of this month.